welcome to the process of healing. Ann Russo, thank you so much for being with me today. You and I had a brief conversation a couple of days ago, just via phone, and I instantly fell in love with you. Thank you so much for being with me.
Right back at you, David. Thank you. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I feel like we're going to go in so many different directions. And the feedback that I've gotten from my listeners is that when you talk about trauma, when you talk about healing, you can't map out a timeline, right? Something that happened to me yesterday is going to remind me of something that happened to me 3 years ago or when I was 3 years old, even. And so you just jump all around. And one of the things that you and I discuss is how I say that I've learned to enjoy the ride. And I think that's been one of my biggest achievements and badge of honor with my trauma and my recovery. And I would love to know a little bit about you and maybe your relationship with trauma and healing.
I personally, I was raised in a queer household growing up, and I always had the feeling that I wanted to somehow help people, support people, especially within the queer community, just because of situations and where our family had to struggle and hide and be in secret. It was difficult. Then I got involved in a lot of social justice work in high school and starting the LGBTQ club and marching in parade. It was awesome. And then when I got to college, I got really invested in understanding religion and then understanding how religion and queerness don't always intersect so beautifully. So I got my master's in theology, I got my master's in social work, and now I run an agency that specializes in marginalized communities. And I'm actually currently writing a book on religious trauma that's going to be published sometime next year through PESI. So it's not just a queer experience, it's just religious trauma as a whole.
I may, if you're interested. So I have multiple podcasts. I have another podcast that I don't host, but my co-host for the process, she does it, but it's called Unholier Than Thou. And she was a part of the troubled teen industry, which was religious based. And then her co-host Jenny was a part of the fundamental independent, the IFB. Why am I going blank?
Exactly.
Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. And so we share stories of people who have survived and healed through religious abuse. And the show is on fire. Like it's fairly new and it's blowing up.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. I feel like this is such a time where I'm seeing more and more people come to me, even in random spaces, and talking about religious trauma or something that happened, or they were felt like they were rebuked or convicted, and they're trying to build their own spirituality. So I can't, that's, yeah, serendipitous.
Absolutely, because you have to deconstruct these things and then decide what you truly believe and then start to rebuild your relationship. And I'm in a place, my trauma happened 10 years ago, and that's fairly recent. 10 years ago was not that long. And I'm in a place where I feel good about things and I feel like I'm in control. But I'm not, I don't like to ever use the word cured. I don't think I'm ever going to be cured. I'm going to be able to maintain and keep watering my garden, but it's something that I'm going to have to stay vigilant and proactive on.
Yeah. Yeah. When you have a trauma experience, it alters you. And I think that sometimes when we hear that, it alters us. We think this must be for the negative because the trauma obviously is a negative experience. But it doesn't always mean that we're altered for the negative. And I think that that's an
100%.
important thing to say. You're altered, yes, but you're just 2.0 now of yourself.
I love that. And I agree. And there was a podcast, and the listeners have heard this story, but I was a guest in this podcast, and they do this rapid fire question at the end that's just fun. And the last question they asked me is, would you change what happened to you? And it's rapid fire. And I said, no. And you can see in real time, I was like, wait, what? And I had to go outside and set my favorite porch swing and put my feet in the grass, ground myself, maybe have a glass of wine because I was like, what the hell just happened? And I
Yeah.
started thinking about it. I was like, I would not have picked this route. But I also, because of this route, I have made some incredible friends. I've learned some incredible lessons, and I'm on a path in life now with podcasting and therapy and helping people that is also helping me that I never would have been on if it wasn't for what happened to me.
Exactly. I think you couldn't say that any better. It happened, you survived, it altered your life, and now you're using that trauma to heal and heal others.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk to you about your website, and I'm going to share the link in the show notes, everyone. But
Okay,
I,
sure.
I, so this is for AMR therapy. That you
Okay.
are the
So I have that. Yeah, there's two websites. That one's for the business. But yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and this is for the one that you're the clinical director. Is that right? So in today's America, there are marginalized communities that are terrified. And I'm not trying to make it political, so I'll stop with that there. Take it as you will. But as soon as I open this up, this says everyone is welcome, inclusivity, culture, sensitivity. It has pictures of all of the people that the therapists, the workers with you, and the diversity, and that is amazing. As you scroll down, you just see all the things that you all support. And this line says counseling services are available to people of all ages, races, genders, sexualities, identities, and cultures. And I almost get choked up with that. And I'm so glad that, me being from the queer community, my hate crime, the things I've shared with you already, the people that we're all kinds of kinds here. If there's one thing in the world that does not discriminate, it's abuse, it's trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that the world has you, especially right now.
Thank you. And back at you. I learned when I was working towards my licensure hours that people aren't explicitly told that they're welcome somewhere. It doesn't mean that they're not, but if you come from a marginalized background, you're looking for safety. You're hyper vigilant in environments. Is this therapist safe for me? Is this doctor safe for me? Is this banker safe for me? Like you're always in a space where you're doing that. So I think it's very important that people in a position of providing services are very implicit about where they stand and not assume that anybody thinks anything or knows anything about them.
100%. And so I would love to actually touch on that for a second. There
Yeah.
have been people that have reached out to me and talked to me, and they've said, I don't know that I feel a connection with my therapist, but they still go. And I tell them to get out, to be honest with them. They have tough skin, they're fine, because there's probably someone else in line waiting that would connect with them. And that person, that therapist, could maybe be the person, the resource to get you to the one that you would connect with. And that is okay. It is not a rejection. And so I would love for you to touch on that and maybe help people feel better about that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we do have in the profession a shortage of providers that are always competent in everything. Let's just, so that already starts us at a deficit, unfortunately. But I would say to clients, this time and space is for you, and you have every right to show up 100% and be comfortable and be open. If this is not a space that you can do this in or a person that you can do this with, you have to move on because it's not going to work. And there are resources that you can look at online specifically if there's something that within yourself or your identity or your experience that you really want to ensure that the therapist has the experience on. You can, before you sign up, ask questions. A therapist should be able to answer questions like, what are you trained in? What are your modalities? What do you specialize in? Tell me about that. That is par for the course. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, we learn as therapists, oh, we can treat everything, we can treat everybody because there's such a deficit that it's like everybody will come to us with 1,000 different things. And my belief is no, we all should have a special area of focus, and we should also be able to refer out appropriately to other people that have areas of focus if we're not a good match for the client. So that's the agenda that I'm pushing right now is if you're not that, find it.
I have a few bad things to say about the state of Tennessee and how I was treated with my hate crime. But I will say there was a good thing that happened. through the victim compensation and victim thing that we have, they set me up with therapy. And I told them, I said, I cannot be put in a room with a straight white man who's going to shut the door. I can't do that right now. That is a trigger to me. And they said, who would you feel comfortable with? And I told them I would like a woman, maybe 30 to 40 to 50.
Mhm.
And they found me her, and she was amazing. And I saw her 3 times a week. And then we started slowly cutting back as I progressed. And then it got to where they wanted to start a men's sexual assault group therapy. And they asked me to be a part of it. I was the first one. And I told them, I said, I want to do this, but I'm terrified. I'm going to be in a room locked up. In my mind, it was locked up, right? All of these men. And I had been trained to think that if a man was abused by another man, it was a gay thing and they hated gay people, when that's simply not the truth. And so I was like, I don't know that I can be in a room with all of these men. And so they agreed that my female therapist could come in for the first couple of times. And after one time of being in there with a few people and the therapist, Rusty, I was like, I'm good. This is safe. And it was everything that I needed and wanted, and the opposite of everything that I thought it was going to be. And I love that. But the fact that this community, your website talks some about advocacy. Even in your introduction, like that was the word that was coming to mind. You've grown up in a queer household and you wanting to start these groups in college, and advocacy is so important. And when that was a story of feeling like my community, my resources gathered round and got me to where I needed to be. I'm so thankful for that.
Oh, absolutely. And we need more of that. And I think that it can be difficult to be an advocate. I think it is difficult to be someone who's experienced a trauma and then comes out and speaks about it to try to support people. But I think the more of us that can be real about our life experiences, like we can come out of the closet like in a different way and support each other, because I working with people, I see so much similarity in how we all live and process and feel and think, and everyone's hiding away. There's this facade that everybody has. So I think that it's really about working at getting to the root of who you are and being authentic and not being afraid of maybe what the world has told us to be afraid of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in the era of my life where I'm ready to be loud. And something I would love to talk to you about is I've had a big life changing event. A year ago today, I moved into my new home after a separation from my partner of 7 years. And it was my first relationship after my big T. The demise of the relationship, absolutely, my attack and my trauma played a factor in that. And so it's been a rough emotional year. And I had this realization 2 days ago that because of religion, because of society, because of stigmas, I have never been mad. I've never been angry. That emotion gets shamed. And I survived. So I've got to be the bigger, better person. I survived. And I think that people get the word angry or mad confused or mixed up or associated with vengeance and retaliation and destructiveness. And I have shamed myself and tried to hide away an emotion that is very important. It's not the emotion that's, in my opinion, and please correct me, but it's not the emotion that's negative. What we do with it could be negative and destructive, but it's something that I need to sit with and something that I need to face. I made a promise to myself these past 2 days that I'm ready and I want to be mad. And that is, I want something, there was an innocence stolen from me. I'm mad that my friend, her father, raped her all the way up to her wedding day with her wedding dress on her before she walked down the aisle. I'm mad about that. And God damn it, I can be mad about it.
Of course. 100% agree with what you're saying. Emotions, they come up, they go away, they come up, that's fine. But something that I think would be a really great place to start trying to get in touch with your anger is just allowing your body to experience it. If you just sit still quietly, like, what does it even mean for you to be angry? What does it even mean for you to be mad? What comes up in your body? Because you're probably holding a lot of that tension there, and that shame is probably very much built somatically into your body. So it's not necessarily that you have to go confront anger. What does it mean for me to be mad or angry? What am I angry about? But just sitting with it at first. What does anger even feel like for me? What's going on in my body when I attempt anger? Like, just see what happens. And that's really the first step to really exploring that emotion.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's what I have been doing the past couple of days is I've recently been drawn to a certain podcast. And I was like, why am I drawn to this? Because I have stopped listening to all other things, stopped watching all other things. And I realized it's because they talk about their petty grievances. And it's about everyday life stuff. Like, why is the person beside me on the airplane taking their socks and shoes off? Keep your socks and shoes on. But they have such a classy way of doing it. They're not yelling, they're not screaming, they're not shaming, they're just saying, I've had it. And there's just this elegance of them healthily releasing the things that we just keep inside of us and shut off because we're told that we've got to sit down and shut up. And what's coming out of me, and obviously I'm just in this for a couple of days. I've been in this phase for a couple of days, so I'm still sitting with it. But what keeps running through my mind, and I think what really drew me to a certain part of your website is the advocacy, because I'm the type of person that when I do actually sit with my emotions and I process them and I start to understand them and I don't react too soon, is when the advocacy part comes up for me.
So it's an integral part of who you are.
Yeah. I'm very excited of this new phase that I'm in and that I'm giving myself permission. And I think that is so important. I learned to give myself permission to cry, to give myself permission to say no and let no be a complete sentence.
Yes, that's a tough one for people.
Oh, hard. It's hard, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell my clients that you're allowed to have a boundary and you don't have to explain yourself. But it does take work. I'm sure the first few times you've done it, it's like your body shakes a little bit. Oh my gosh, because you're going against an old program in
Uh-huh.
your mind.
But the high I got from it when like I walked away and felt good about it and that I set this boundary, I was aware of it, I kept it, and there was this pat on the back that I was able to give myself and I was proud.
Yes, exactly. You push through. And it's the same with the emotional piece that you're talking about. I think we're taught to stuff our emotions. I think it's getting a little better, but generally it's like stuff your emotions. And that's what we do. But it's going to come out in physical health problems and relationship ruptures. It's going to show up. Can't stuff it. But I think that we're not really taught that there are tools to move through it. If you start to feel something, does that mean I'm going to be stuck there forever? And you're not, but it feels like it, right? So I think that working with a therapist who can understand this is a good place to go, even if you're not necessarily having a mental health crisis or illness, but just learning how to process feelings and emotions exponentially will improve your life.
I do my therapy, even if I've had the best week and I'm on cloud nine, I go to therapy and I talk about that. It's all the emotions. I think that people think that you only need therapy if you're sad or mad or hurt. And I go and I celebrate with my therapist. I'm probably happy and having a great week because the tools they help me create to put into my toolkit. And I'm going to celebrate that.
Exactly. It's sometimes people wait too long to go to therapy, and that is a real bummer. But I understand it, and I understand the stigma and not fully understanding what it might mean, but it really is a great place to get to know yourself. And if you're not in crisis, if you're not having a huge life change, it allows you to be more of like a in a reflective space, insightful space. Who am I? What do I want? What are my needs? What are my values? How do I want to relate to people? How do I relate to people? If you're in crisis, you're not thinking about those things. You're just trying to survive. So I love therapy for understanding self outside of just having a mental health crisis.
Yeah, like it's part of watering my garden,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there are times that with group therapy, sometimes the men will message and say, you know what, I've had a good couple of weeks. I'll come back in a week or two. And when I started noticing a pattern with that, I was like, okay, I think that they have in their head that you only go to therapy if, and so I did a little test, I guess. And it was a day that everyone was there. And I said, you know what? I've had a good couple of weeks, but I'm here and I'm only here to listen. I'm going to skip my time to talk and I'm here to be with you all and just be that support. And people caught on to that. So they were there to be an ally, to advocate for the person that may be sad or mad or hurt or in a phase that they're not in. It really caught on. And now that's what we do. We come in and we say, you know what, I'm here to support today. And there are times that people come in and we say, you know what, I need the full damn hour. I'm struggling. And they rally around us, and that's what we do. And I just really like that.
That's incredible. That's advocacy.
Yeah. I would love to ask you the group of your therapists here with AMR, they're
Mm.
such diverse, beautiful group of people. I have several podcasts, and it's all based on either true crime or mental health. I make sure that we all do check ins with each other. And I'm not a therapist. We do have a therapist that works with us, but we are sounding boards for a lot of people. I listen to traumatic stories. We always try to make a sandwich and have a happy ending. There are times that I can be triggered, and then I go and I edit it. So pretty much everything that I do is based around mental health and sometimes a lot of the bad sides of it. And so, what do you do for your team, or what would you suggest for us podcasters, us listeners that are sounding boards for people to cleanse ourselves and give ourselves that space to release the things that we're trying to carry and take on for other people that we ally for?
Oh, that is a great question. I can't say that there'd be one particular thing that stands out or even a few. What I would say is depending on who you are as a person, self-care may look different for some people. And self-care, therapists talk a lot about self-care. It's really shoved down our throats in grad school, always a work in progress. But if you're someone who garner energy and connection, and that is self-care for you to be around other people talking about other things. If self-care maybe you're by yourself, you're taking a bath, you meditate, you do yoga, you exercise, it really can be anything. But one thing that I do think is very important is that you do have someone that you can share how you're feeling with soon after you've had that dump happen. And it's really important after that dump to be able to release some of that and not take it with you. Even metaphysically speaking, like you could have like a little ritual. There's just so many things to cleanse your space and cleanse your energy after you've just taken in a lot of difficult things.
Yeah, we try to meet on Zoom as a group, and we always say, let's not talk about work. But we're so passionate about this. You're not working if you enjoy it, and this is what just connects us all. But it's still on a different level, right? We get together, we may have a glass of wine together on Zoom because we're all in different states. And there are times that I'll call and I'll be like, you know what? I just need you for 10 minutes. And I need to talk about the flowers are growing in the garden because I need to think of something else right now. And we do that. And I love that. And what I love about self care is that all the things that you mentioned, it could be for all for one person. It doesn't have to be one specific thing. So many things can be true at the same time. Today, I might write a letter and go outside and burn it and bury it. And tomorrow, I'll write a letter in a bubble
Yes.
bath. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Like it's like learning how to listen to yourself and your stress responses.
Yeah.
What do I need? And being someone who does the work that you do and others to recognize again when it's okay to say no, because if you've taken on the max amount that you can take on for the day, you have to be able to say no to recharge your battery. And that can be a challenge. It lends right back to self-care, good boundaries, and how self-care looks for you in that moment. What is the thing that's going to help you release the tough energy, the heavy energy?
Yeah. Boundaries come up a lot. And I think that is a global obstacle for everyone. And I think that I know that growing up, we were taught to say sorry. Like, David, you hit your brother, tell him you're sorry. I don't want anyone to tell me they're sorry if they're not. And I understand why we tell kids that, but I'm in a place now where I don't have children, but when it comes to my godchildren, I ask them, can I hug them? And
Yeah.
if they want to hug, great. If not, that's fine. I'm not mad at you. And if they do something that hurts me, I don't want them to tell me they're sorry until they are. I want to maybe have a conversation about it, but I don't want it to be just that throwaway word. I want it to mean something. And I think that we're just taught to be nice. If someone comes up to me in a grocery store and I don't have the time to talk with them, maybe it's an acquaintance, it's not rude for me to say, hey, I'm on a time crunch. It's so good to see you. I want to step away. What I've always done in the past is I will sit there and I will neglect what other responsibility I was already in a rush for because I can't be ugly to someone else, but it's not being ugly. It's setting that boundary, and boundaries are not ugly.
No, and it's and the ability to confront a difficult situation. We talk about confronting things and oh my gosh, confronting, but really what we're talking about is acknowledging what's there, right? So it's like in that situation that you just described, it feels scary because you're confronting the situation and you've been taught this is how you're supposed to be in that situation, right? So it is scary, but what are you actually doing? You ran into someone unexpectedly. They're talking, you don't have time. You tell them it's good to see you, but I don't have the time right now. But that's just being authentic to where you're at and what's going on for you.
I agree. And I know that it's almost like that part of the four F's, right? The fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Yeah.
I found myself fawning, I guess, at even the thought of someone. That if I tell someone, especially so my story was public and people would see me out in public through my healing journey and they thought they knew me, right? Because they'd seen my story, they'd seen it on the news, they followed it, and they would want to run up and they would want to hug me. That was triggering to me, a stranger
Sure.
coming up to me. But they meant it in the kindest of ways, right? They were glad to see that I was taking my first steps or that I didn't have a walker. And last week they saw me with a walker. They were so excited to see that growth. And I found myself, if someone was standing in line behind me at Walmart, for example, and they were
Mhm.
just a little too close, I would find myself allowing it, not setting a boundary with it because I had a perceived threat. And in some cases, even fawning, if that's the correct word to use, and being overly nice because that was a defense mechanism, maybe for them to thinking that they're going to hurt me if I said the wrong thing.
Oh, 100%. I think that what we fail to do in our society is put the onus back on the person that's standing too close. We should be teaching each other how to respect each other's boundaries, teaching each other how to ask for consent, teaching each other how to be emotionally available. And so to me in that situation, I just think, imagine if that person was like, I don't know him. So I'm going to give him some space because that's just what we do. The onus should come from there. So it's like these conversations, I hope people hear this and go, oh, am I disrupting someone's boundary, not even realizing it? Am I touching someone's hair without their permission? It's just educating from that perspective because it's hard when the onus is on the person being triggered.
I agree. I always tell people that my triggers is my responsibility, but because of my triggers, it is a reminder that I don't know other people's triggers because it's their responsibility. And so something I do could be triggering to them. And so I try to be aware of that. And I always try to find the good in everything and not in a toxic positivity kind of way, but take COVID, for example. People stand a little further away now. People are not in people's bubbles so much now without permission. And I've always said I want to make consent sexy again. Like, one of the most romantic things that happened after my attack and I started exploring sex again is Even in the bed, he was asking permission. Is it okay if I do that? And it was sexy. And consent can be sexy.
Exactly. So it's learning how to communicate to this level in general. If we're all learning to do this, we can be responsible for our own triggers, but people can be aware of our trigger. It's like we're moving, we're growing together. So it takes all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you and I talked on the phone the other day, I had told you about my men's group and some of the men that have even contacted me and been a part of the show and just how much that really meant to me. I feel like nothing's going to be fixed until we get to the core of the problem. And we are a world of a lot of band aids and we bleed through those band aids. This with love and respect. And I hope that I use the right words, but I think that another good thing that came from COVID is awareness of mental health. And I even noticed a difference in the awareness toward the male gender.
Mhm.
And I'm really appreciative of that. I think that when you look at crimes and statistics, even men die younger. I think there's just so much unprocessed trauma because we are told and that it go fight it out in the yard and be done with it. And I think that's what leads to substance abuse and just trying to numb that pain and that sting. And there's been so many men reach out to me that's in their 30s, 40s, 50s. I had an 88-year-old man as a guest on my podcast.
Wow.
And he was talking about until he was in his 70s, he didn't even know he was traumatized because people
Oh,
told him that it is not traumatic being in a war. It is not traumatic having divorced parents. It's not traumatic that your dad was an alcoholic and missed your baseball games. That is trauma. And that is something that he has carried with him. And he is the best looking, most active 88-year-old man I've ever seen. And it's because he's learned to release. So I would love, I know I go on these tangents with my questions.
go,
I'm
go. It's
passionate
great.
about this.
Yeah, I know. It's
But
great.
I would love to hear your thoughts about men and what you find with trauma, and then even all of us. Hit on whatever you would like.
With men, particularly, they definitely are taught this toxic masculinity, as we've coined it. When I work with men, we do have to unburden some of that. It's very tricky. I think, David, I'm just musing out loud here too, because some men, some women who might be, they're more masculine, some might be viewed as more feminine, more emotional, more intellect, however we want to divide up these categories. So it's not so much that I think, okay, you're suppressing this or that. It's okay, who are you authentically? We all do have emotions, but someone may choose to express them one way and another person chooses to express them another way, and that's okay. So I want to find the authentic chord. And I think that for men, they've been given one chord. So it's no, there's hundreds, right? It doesn't have to show up like this. Trying to remove some of that pressure of what it means to be a man in society, and also to recognize that while, especially white, cis, straight men, there's this, they're being put aside for the moment, but I want to acknowledge the cultural message impact on all people and how we can move through that together. But I always come back to authenticity, authenticity, getting in touch with yourself, and then being able to show up. And it is work. It's total work. I'm thinking of someone in particular where it was like, he was so cute because he was trying so hard to understand how to articulate his emotions. He's a very hyper masculine man. He still is a very hyper masculine man, but he's learned how in certain situations to express his feelings, even though it was very challenging for him at first, but it's only helped, his relationships. But he still shows up like a masculine dude, but he's able to communicate to that level when he needs to.
Yeah. And the fact that we want to think that having an emotion minimizes your masculinity. Like I was telling my straight buddy, I was like, man, I promise you, the minute you let go of this, embrace this, you're already a good looking guy. Women are going to flock to you. You're going to have to be the pick of the litter because like you're already a great package. And the
Yeah.
moment that you're really in touch with yourself, that's going to be unstoppably sexy.
Emotions are part of the human experience. We all have them. So by embracing who you are and embracing the emotions of those around you, we are building a better society by doing that. It's learning how to communicate around these things. It's asking yourself, where did that message come from? Why is it here with me now? And is it something that I really believe?
I came up with a business idea, and you might be the right person to pitch this to since you've been so successful. So, a buddy of mine, he does like carpentry, construction kind of work. So, he works with a bunch of men. He is straight, but he is very into mental health, very into with his emotions. To where even when he started at some of these job sites, the men have even questioned his sexuality or maybe even built a wall because they're only used to working with a bunch of toxic masculinity men. But he has this magical way of becoming friends with them and not taking that personally and knowing that is a form of a cry for help. And so now I need them to start paying me as their therapist because we're hammering things and they're talking to me about these emotions. Like one day it just started. I was like, I want to have traveling therapists that play basketball with you and therapize you, that will build a house with you. I want to own a construction company of therapists who want to go and paint with you, do these masculine things with you, fish with you, and have them start opening up to you. And they'll start opening up and they're getting therapy without even realizing it.
That is so funny because when I was in grad school, the last year, we do these trips where we like go to the state capitol and work on policy. And at the state capitol, we were in San Francisco, and this was in California. We then went to Sacramento to the Capitol, and I thought, wouldn't it be so cool if there was therapists that traveled around like that and they just worked with random people in random places that like were comfortable spots. So it's just funny that you brought that up. I totally wish that could be a thing
I
because
know.
I think it would be amazing. You're really meeting someone where they're at.
Like, why can't my therapist meet me at a coffee shop? Why can't my therapist meet me at my favorite ice cream parlor or on a bench at a park, like where I'm comfortable? Because I think that and I can't speak for everyone, I can just speak for myself, but I know that like when I first started going to therapy after my attack, it felt very clinical. It felt very doctor. I had to accept in a harsher way that I was what I thought was broken. And obviously that's not the case. I learned differently than that. But there was a bit of a wall because it was a doctor's office. There was just a way I didn't love it. Luckily, I got past that really quick. But some people don't. And I think that's what keeps them from going. Imagine if you could call your therapist and say, hey, can our meeting be at Starbucks today? Can our meeting be at the local pint beer place for one beer, for some chips and salsa, whatever? Like, why can't we do that?
There is a model, a recovery model when I was doing an internship that actually they didn't do therapy that way, but they did support services that way. And I had a client that we would go to the movies, we would go out to eat, and it was just there for support. I didn't do therapy, I wasn't a therapist, but having some kind of component of that and support, I think is very important. There with the therapy in other places, gray,
Yeah.
gray area for me. But I can see the usefulness of having the client more or less pick the space rather than the therapist a sterile office. That, and just making sure that there's so many pieces to this, right? But it's like depending on where you are in your journey with there's just so many pieces. And I think that these are conversations that are really worth having and discussing because our goal is to meet the client where they're at. So what does that mean?
I hadn't even thought about like some therapists I've been to, they will have their offices set up in a certain type of way that maybe certain kind of plants or different kind of chairs where it's not like them sitting at a desk and it felt more comfortable. But like I remember talking to my therapist Melinda, and I was like, I wish there was like a little coffee shop in the clinic or a park bench at the clinic that we could go set out. Even if we just sat there for 5 minutes before we walk in, and to just break the ice. And not because I felt very thrown to the wolves a lot.
100%. 100%. A lot of the clients we get are new to therapy, and we have consults we do at the beginning where we really try to explain everything about it, normalize all the feelings around it. It is hard to do. And I think as a therapist, sometimes you might take it for granted. Oh, you're asking someone to really break open a lot of things. And that's very delicate. And you're a stranger and a strange place. So being able to do what you just said is such a beautiful rapport building thing. I love coffee. I love my clients. That would be amazing. Let's have a 5 to 10 minute icebreaker out here. Let's have a cup of coffee. Okay. When you're ready, we'll go into the office. I think we do need to revolutionize the way that we do some things. Always consistent with client care, of course, and evidence-based care, but really, is this the best way for everybody?
Yeah, I like that. And I think that if we could find the right ways to do it, because I'm sure the words and ideas I have are not the best ones. So it's just throwing things out.
Out there.
But I think I like to think my therapist Melinda, she was the one that taught me, let's make a sandwich, right? Let's start with something good and end with something good, because in the middle there's a bunch of shit. And so what if that first part of the sandwich was us sitting on a park bench outside of the office and saying, what was your high for the day? What was your high this week? Now let's go inside and talk about the shitty stuff. And then let's end on something else positive. Like I try to do that with my show too, because we do talk about a lot of ugly, triggering things. So I always try to start out with something light and end on something light and positive to take away, because I want anyone to ever log off my show and be like, damn, I need a drink in a bad way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, I do. I think though that these conversations need to exist, client and therapist, client and medical provider, because there is just so much rigidity that is not helpful. It's just not helpful. So I like that a lot. And even with our consults and stuff, it's like we ask, what's the best way you like to learn? How do you like homework? Is it better for you to talk? Do you want a therapist who's more? So we're trying to help align you with one of the providers there where you can start to really build a rapport and be comfortable, especially if it's your first time in therapy. And we always say, if this isn't a good fit for you, just let us know. It's okay. You haven't done anything wrong. Some personalities don't mesh, and that's completely fine. And we'd be happy to have you meet with somebody else. I think that's really important. That has to exist, that ability to be open, however you get there.
And that's definitely something we have to normalize. And maybe we can try it with your beautiful group of people. Let's do speed dating therapists. You get 3 minutes with each one. And then
God, I love it. Oh my gosh, that's
I'll
hilarious.
come to your office. We can set them all down. I get a couple minutes with each one, and then I get to tell you which one I want from there.
Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be awesome? I,
We're coming up with some ideas,
I
aren't we?
like that. Speed dating with therapists. I feel like that could be a show. Seriously, you have someone who just goes to different places and you get the vibe of what different therapists are like and modalities and what people are. Yeah, I'm into it.
We might be onto something here.
Yeah,
Luckily,
yeah.
it's recorded. I think that can play part of a copyright. So,
Perfect.
So, oh my gosh. And
I want to ask you, I know that we have talked about all kinds of things. And what I love and what people have told me and what I tell people is therapy isn't just about going to a clinic and saying, here's one of the bricks in my ton of baggage. This is therapeutic to me. We laughed. I got teary eyed at one point. I'm taking so much away from it. I re listen to my episodes. There are times I'm like, you know what? I had this person on 2 years ago when we talked about this, and it's kind of what I'm feeling right now. I'm re listening to it. It's therapy again. Therapy doesn't just have to be in a clinical office with a doctor and a clipboard and a notepad. And this is part of my self care. This is the listeners, they say that listening to this show is part of their self care. And so I love that we have these conversations. And I want to make sure that we give enough time for you to bring up anything that you want to. I know that I've throwing out a bunch of stuff at you. I want us to make sure we talk about your website, the business, the companies, any future plans, but I want to make sure that we cover everything that you want to address.
Thank you. The main thing that I always want to address, and I feel like we've done that, is the advocacy piece, the authenticity piece, and learning how to communicate with each other and having a little more empathy for ourselves and others. I think that's everything, right? That's the work of being human. I would say to your listeners, have a little more empathy today. Have a little more empathy with yourself. How are you talking to yourself today? We're all on a journey. We are on the journey together, but we're also on it individually. And it's all good. You got this.
I love that. And I agree 100%. I always do this thing when I'm talking to myself. If would I talk to my friend like this?
Yes.
I talk to my dog like this. If I was talking to someone like this in a restaurant, would I be asked to leave the restaurant? Because there are times I've talked to myself in a way that if I was in public talking to anyone else that way, I would be escorted out. So
Yes.
I try to ask myself, and I don't think that it's bad to say, David, did you really give 100% at that? Could you have done something better? That's constructive criticism.
Yeah,
But
sure.
when I'm like, damn it, David, of course you screwed up. That's
Very,
the difference.
yeah, very different. You're allowed to give yourself constructive criticism. You have insight into things that are working and not working, but to beat yourself up,
Yeah.
totally different thing. And most of us do that, but it's just a record that keeps playing. There's not necessarily that level of awareness of how often it happens. I think that would be a good thing to leave your listeners with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how are you talking to yourself today? What are you noticing? Is there a way you could say that differently?
Advocacy is always been important to me, but where we are in the world right now in 2025, there are people that I have seen advocating for me that are a part of my life that I've always known that they supported, but I didn't really know how much,
Mm.
and I'm seeing it. On the flip side of that, I'm also seeing the ones that I thought were supportive and they're not. But I wake up every day that I will rally around an ally for anyone and everyone. My listeners don't know this. I have a friend that is staying with me. He is here on asylum. He is legal. He does everything that he's supposed to do. He's the hardest working, kindest, non English speaking person that you know. So we talk through translating apps and we have a little broken English that we do sometimes. So it's just become like a fun little thing for us. I've heard him cry because he's terrified right now. I'm fighting and I'm being loud and I'm mad and I'm giving myself permission to be mad and I'm not going to filter anything. And I want everyone to know that I am a safe place. The community I have is a safe place. And I'm so thankful for you. And I feel like I've made a friend. And I love that the community has you. And I just thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hear you 100%. And I think that there comes a point where we have to make hard decisions. And being a therapist and showing up as neutral as possible as a business owner, at one point you have to ask yourself, what am I showing up neutral for? What do I actually believe? What are my principles? And so that is why I've been working on the things I'm working on and talking on the podcast like I have been, because it's scary to show that you're not neutral and you can get attacked for it, hurt for it. But I believe that a society really is only as good of its most marginalized member. And the society is not very good right now. And I don't want to sugarcoat that. There are a lot of people that are hurting and being harmed, and these are human beings.
Yes, 100%. And like my skin crawls when I hear someone say they're illegals or I hate that. They are humans. and
Yeah.
human beings. And one thing that have always been proud of my country for is that we protected people and we love people and we are a coat of many colors. And that is being robbed right now and is being questioned right now. And I'm pissed.
Yeah. Take that pissed offness that you're talking about and direct it into the advocacy. We can't, obviously, there's so many things being thrown at us right now that we can't possibly do it all, but find that thing that you're passionate about and put your energy there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're trying to do extra episodes and we go live on TikTok. I'm going to do a shameless plug for myself before you do yours. But we go live on TikTok several times a week. We're building a great community. We laugh, we cry, we support, and that's what we need right now. And it doesn't matter if it's me and one other person or me and 200 people. And so I'm proud of us. I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of the strength that we have. I believe good wins. I believe a lot of lessons are going to be learned. Some of them are going to be painful, but I don't like it when people say, what happened to you made you stronger. I'm already strong, and that's how I got to where I am today. My attack may have increased my strength, but I was already strong before my attack. I'm strong right now, even as a minority. I'm still strong. My voice is loud. I have power and I'm going to use it. And I'm going to find the people that want to use it with me. And we're going to be loud.
Yes.
We're going
Yes.
to be heard and we're going to win.
Yes, we are. Oh, beautiful.
I could probably sit and talk to you all day, but I know you have probably plenty of amazing things to do. So tell us where we can find you. Tell us any information that you want to share. And of course, I want to put everything in the show notes too.
Awesome. Thank you. amrtherapy.com is a good place to go to check out the practice. Anything involving my personal work, which would be the book, training provider, CEUs, things like that, would be annrusso.org. I'm writing a book on religious trauma, and it uses evidence-based therapy practices, but I created a new modality for religious trauma. And it's using a lot of behavioral therapy in helping people move through the existential crisis, shame and guilt, sexuality, and really just teaching providers how to notice when something is religious trauma and being different from other kinds of trauma and where they may have to go in a very different direction to assist the clients. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
That is so cool. I love that. Yeah, we definitely need to stay connected. And I feel like you're going to be somebody that I'm going to want back 100 different times. So be ready.
I love it. Yes, please.
I tell people that when I hit end, that doesn't mean we're done. You're stuck with me now.
Good, good. I'm happy to be.
Remember, healing is a journey, not a destination.
You are not alone in this. It's okay to take your time, explore different perspectives, and find what resonates with you. Healing takes courage, and we believe in you.
Together, we can enjoy the ride.